Now that we're able to add new to-do items to our to-do list and goals to our goals list, and all of this state or all of this data is originating from our store, the next thing we need to do, if you remember, is we need to be able to remove different to-do items from our to-do list as well as remove goals from our goals list. So let's go ahead and do that now. So first, let's go ahead and make a brand new function. And what this function is going to do is we'll call it create remove button. It's going to take in an onClick function, and then it's going to return a new button that when it's clicked on will invoke the onClick callback function that was passed into it when create remove button was invoked. So first, let's create a new element by using document.createElement. We want to create a button element. And then we will give this some inner HTML. We'll just have it be an X for now for simplicity. And then we will go ahead and add an event listener to it. So whenever it is clicked, we want to invoke the onClick function that was passed in. And then we will just go ahead and return the button that we created. So now, whenever we need a button, we can go ahead and just call this create remove button, passing it the function that we want it to run when the button is clicked. And so we can use this specifically inside of our add goal to DOM and add to do to DOM functions. So I'm going to go ahead and just grab both of those. So add goal to DOM and add to do to DOM, and I'm just going to move them down here into our DOM code. Let's put them right here. And then now, as I mentioned, inside add to do to DOM, instead of just rendering the to-do, we want to render the to-do item as well as a button that we can click on in order to remove that to-do item. So what we can do is right here, let's go ahead and create a new variable called remove button. And we're going to get that by calling our create remove button function that we just barely created. And then now, whenever this button is clicked, we're going to run this function. And what we want to do is we want to call dispatch and pass in remove to do action, just like we did right here. So we'll say store.dispatch. And what action do we want to do? We want to do the remove to do action, and then we need to pass it the ID of the to do that we want to remove, which we will get from todo.id. And then now, just as we're doing here, where we say no.append child text, we also want to say append child with our remove button. So now what should happen is if we add a few different to-do items here, you'll notice that we now have that button. And if we click on it, that will be removed from the to-do list. So let's go ahead and do that exact same thing with our goals. So right here, I'm going to create a brand new variable. We'll call this one remove button as well, that we will get from our create remove button function. And now instead of dispatching the toggle to do action, we want to go ahead and dispatch the remove goal action, passing it the goal ID, which we will get from goal.id. And then just as we did before, we will append remove button onto our node, which should make it so we now have a button here for our goal as well. And then when we click on one of these buttons, it removes that specific goal. So to recap what we did in this video, we needed a way to remove specific items from our lists. So what we did was we created this create remove button function that took in an onClick function and then returned us a new button element that whenever that button was clicked would call the onClick function that we passed in when we invoke create remove button. So we created a few buttons, both inside of our add to do to DOM function as well as down here inside of add goal to DOM. And whenever the button was clicked, what we did was we called store.dispatch and invoked the specific action, remove goal action for the goal and remove to do action for the to do item, passing in the specific item's ID, which would then go and remove that specific item from our store. And now that our app is pretty much complete as far as all of the initial actions that we had, what we can do is let's go into our app, and anywhere that we were calling store.dispatch before, we added in the UI. Let's go ahead and delete all of those because we no longer need to reference those. And there we go.